Um, Hello from Israel. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for having me on this distinguished platform. Today, I would like to speak about the Turkish foreign policy, its foundations, and of course, its most important ramifications in our entire region, of course, including the Middle East and Eastern Mediterranean. How this very important actor, Turkey, is affecting the all of our surroundings, especially in the Syrian region. So before we start and delve into what is going on in today's Syria, I would love to provide a backbone for our lecture. And I would like to provide a background about the Turkish foreign policy. And Turkish foreign policy under Erdogan is going through a very radical change. In the Prior to his arrival, we do see that the traditional Turkish foreign policy was based on Atatürk's well-known byword, peace at home, peace in the world. It means that Turkey did everything possible to disengage from the Muslim Arab Middle East. Of course, this cannot be said for Cyprus, obviously, but we can say that this particular policy was indeed applicable for the entire Middle East. Turkey looked at the Middle East as a very problematic arena, and until the arrival of Mr. Erdogan, did everything possible to refrain to engage in this problematic region. However, after his arrival, of course, not in his first term, in order not to anger the generals, but in the second term, as we can say, we began to see a gradual Turkish interest in the region. And especially this reached to its peak in 2010 when the Turks uh, played a very crucial role in the Middle East. You may all remember the so-called Freedom Flotilla to the Gaza Strip, which sought to break the legal blockade on the Gaza Strip that was also recognized by the United Nations. We all know, unfortunately, what has happened because of this unnecessary violence. Unfortunately, 10 Turkish citizens were killed by the Israeli security forces. And of course, this was a very unfortunate incident that will be remembered in the history of the relations. It could be definitely prevented. But of course, that was not a coincidence. When we are looking at this big picture, we can see that with the Marmara incident and even before with the Operation Castled and the very infamous incident in the Davos Economic Forum, we begin to see a steady deterioration in the Israeli-Turkish relations, and we begin to see a steady interest in Turkey's foreign policy regarding the Middle East. And here I would also like to provide an insight regarding a very important matter. In Turkey, there is a top secret document called the National Security Policy Document, which is also known by its name, the Red Book. This particular document is intentionally leaked, some of its parts, of course, leaked to the press so that the press and the Turkish public and the all other actors in the region can understand more or less what disturbs Turkey, what Turkey sees as a national security threat, etc. So this particular document first penned in 1965, and every 5 years it was republished again and updated again and again. And since the Turkish armed forces were the dominant actor in the Turkish foreign in the Turkish politics until Erdogan's arrival, or let me be more accurate, until Erdogan's first term, until the end of Erdogan's first term, this particular document was penned by the army generals. However, after 2010, we already saw that this particular document was penned by Justice and Development Party. I also would like to open here a very important parenthesis. In 2008 and in 2007 and in 2008, there was a very important lawsuit in Turkey called the Ergenekon probe. Many army generals were accused for orchestrating a military coup against the elected government, and as a result, they were imprisoned. And therefore, we can say that the army was weakened significantly after 2009. So it should not surprise us that the Red Book of 2010 or 2010 was penned not by the army generals who suffered from the Ergenekon probe, but rather it was penned by then Turkish Foreign Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu, who is considered as a very neo-Ottomanist politician. Of course, he had an enormous effect, enormous impact on Mr. Erdogan as well. So he preached, in short, that Turkey should follow the footsteps of the Ottoman Empire. And in this regard, of course, you may not revive an empire again in this 21st century, but you can do it by reviving its soft power influence. So, as a result, we began to see that Turkey began to act as a very active uh, player in the same geography where once upon a time Ottoman Empire ruled. And in this regard, we also saw that. You can also read this in his book. Mr. Davutoğlu then, proposed an idea that Turkey should sacrifice its relations with the state of Israel in order to boost its relations with the Arab states in the Middle East. So therefore, if you have read that book before, you could easily understand and foresee the deterioration of the bilateral relations between Israel and Turkey. And when we are looking at this picture after the Mavi Marmara Flotilla issue, for the first time ever, Israel was introduced into the Red Book as a player uh, which is threatening the stability of the region. Okay, if not tagged as a threat directly against Turkey, but for the first time ever, Israel found itself a very respected place in the so-called Red Book. Of course, when we are looking at the larger picture, then in the previous Red Books, Greece, Cyprus, and some other Middle Eastern states like Iran, Syria, Iraq, they were all tagged as natural and built-in threats. However, you may all remember that the Turkish foreign policy then made a very important shift, and they adopted this policy of the zero problems with the neighbors policy, which later bankrupted. And long story short, we reached to the days of the Arab Spring. We all happened to see the Syrian civil war, which started in 2011. Turkey, wanted to act here as a very important player. And if we are talking about neo-Ottomanism, we cannot also, pretend that the Sunni Islam is not playing a role here. Of course, it plays a very important role in Turkish foreign policy because when we are looking at history, the Sunni Islam was an inseparable part of the Ottoman Empire. And therefore, when we are looking at this the phenomenon called the Arab Spring, we began to see that the Turkish government, which is very much influenced by the ideas of the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, they wanted to see new Middle Eastern states who based on the Sunni Islam and this Muslim Brotherhood ideology. And as a result, starting from 2011, Mr. Erdogan began to support the Syrian rebels in Syria, who are basically Sunnis. In the very beginning of this war, Mr. Erdogan urged Bashar al-Assad to declare elections in his country. It's very interesting that Erdogan has turned then into a knight of democracy, but it was not for democracy, but rather we can say that Erdogan was very much aware of the fact that 75% of Syria was composed of the Sunni Muslims. And since Bashar al-Assad was an Alawite, and if he would go on a democratic election, indeed, he knew that he would be defeated on the basis of sectarian politics. And as a result, unsurprisingly, Assad did not go to elections, and Erdogan chose to arm and provide logistical support for the rebels. But later, we all witnessed that in 2016. The Russians also intervened in Syria and changed the whole picture. And the Turks, even if they supported their Free Syrian Army, this entity could not deliver what Erdogan really wanted from it. And as a result, in the same year, 2016, Turkey launched its first extraterritorial military operation against Syria. In this on paper, this particular operation targeted ISIS, but we all know that it also targeted the Kurdish PYD-YPG entities. In the eyes of Turkey, this PYD-YPG entity and the PKK has symbiotic relations, and therefore Turkey calls this PYD-YPG as a terrorist organization, just like the PKK. However, in the eyes of the West, since the PYD-YPG fought against ISIS, this particular entity already got some legitimacy, and they were, of course, crowned as an allies of the West and the United States. Long story short, in 2016 and of course later 2018 and 19, we saw three different military operations. These were the Euphrates Shield, the Olive Branch, and the Spring and the Peace Spring operations. As you may understand from the names, the main objective and main Turkish statement was very much similar to the war in Cyprus. In Cyprus in 1974, the war was tagged as the peace operation for Cyprus. And when you're looking at the names of the operations that were conducted in Syria, so this is, you can understand that this is from the same school. Euphrates Shield, you're shielding someone. Okay, you're trying to protect someone. The olive branch, the peace spring, right? So we began to see the penetration of the Turkish forces, and at the end, Turkey occupied three different regions inside Syria: the Jarablus region, the canton, Afrin canton, and Tel El Abyad Ras Al Ain canton. And besides that, Turkey also formed good relations with the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, uh, a jihadist organization. The current leader, Julani, who revealed his real name as Ahmed al-Shara, he was a wanted terrorist by the United States only like 2 weeks ago, right? But the world is changing very fast. So yesterday he was a terrorist with a green uniform. Today he became a statesman with a tie and a jacket, most probably brought from Turkey. Anyways, so so when we are looking at this picture, we began to see that Turkey also formed very good relations with this Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and even established on the Idlib province, which was technically under the control of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, some observation posts. And these observation posts were entitled to prevent a total attack and a full-scale attack of the Assad forces and the Russian forces to deter them. And if it's not enough for you, then I also would like to remind you that Turkey also frightened the European Union by a refugee influx. And if the Turks said to the Europeans, if the city of Idlib was bombed, in the city of Idlib there were approximately 4 million potential refugees. These people would most likely come to the Turkish border. And as a result, Turkey threatened the EU that it would open the border with Greece. You may all remember that such an incident took place just before the eruption of the COVID-19 virus. Turkey opened its border with Greece, and there were some unpleasant incidents on the Turkish-Greek land border. You may all remember that. So, long story short, also Turkey used the European Union to deter a Russian and a full-scale attack by the Russians and the Assad forces. And therefore, Turkey created here a living space for the rebels. Uh, and in 2016, Turkey also turned into the main spokesperson of the Syrian rebels when Russia, Iran, and Turkey initiated this Astana process. You may all remember that these three countries, as the main belligerents in Syria, they tried to solve their problems on the table by engaging in diplomacy. And Turkey, from time to time, signaled that it may it may desert the rebels. For instance, in 2022, there was a there was an ongoing negotiation process for a normalization with Syria. Later in the same year, we all witnessed a terrorist attack in Istanbul's Taksim Square, a terrorist attack that was conducted by a Syrian woman, which was a clear message for Turkey. If you're gonna leave the Syrian opposition alone, unfortunately, the price was, of course, pure terrorism that the Turkish civilians unfortunately killed brutally. Of course, this cannot be approved, and in my opinion, in this regard, Turkey was deterred by the Syrian rebels who did not take any responsibility for this terrorist attack, but rather they blamed the PKK for this awful terrorist attack. And again, only 2 months before the fall of Assad, again, a very similar negotiation process was to be launched by the Turks. But again, since the Turks did not want to withdraw from the occupied territories in northern Syria, that the three cantons that I mentioned, so Assad did not want to normalize the relations with Turkey. Maybe he did the mistake of his life, because if he did normalize, maybe we could still see the presence of Assad in Syria. So we all know and saw what happened in last December in a very, like a blitz. It was a blitz in a very short time with a very fast manner. These rebels did manage to topple Assad's regime within a week or less, even. Of course, we should ask ourselves what happened. What was there a miracle here? In December in Israel, we are celebrating the Hanukkah holiday, which is a synonym for the miracles. For us, it was not a very big miracle because we could understood the background of this victory. There were two important incidents here. The first incident, of course, was the war on Ukraine. Because of the war in Ukraine, because of this attrition that the Russians suffered, in the Ukrainian front, so they could not provide the necessary reinforcements and military assistance for the Assad forces. That's the first issue. The second issue, of course, was the Israeli victory over Hezbollah terrorist organization. We all remember how, in a very complex manner, how the Israeli Mossad got rid of the most senior the terrorists with the beeper, with the pager machines. And as a result, within a very short time, Israel neutralized the most important terrorists within hours by only clicking a button. And therefore, these terrorists who were functioning as Assad's mercenaries to fight against these rebels, they did not function again. And as a result, all the stars are aligned. And these rebels, in the absence of the Hezbollah terrorists and in the absence slash weakness of the Russian troops in the region, so they basically concluded their mission in a very good way. And when we are looking at the Erdogan's statements, you can also understand that Erdogan was pretty surprised by the pace and by the efficiency of this attack. When the city of Halab fell, most people were thinking that uh, most probably the city of Hama or maybe the city of Homs would function like a fortification wall for Damascus. But we also saw that these two cities fell right after the other, and the rest is the history. Then Damascus fell as well, and Assad fled, and we began to see, a Turkish domination here. We can say Iran out, Turkey in. And of course, if we are speaking about neo-Ottomanism, we cannot, disengage ourselves from the mindset of Mr. Erdogan and the Turkish Ottoman past. When Erdogan is looking at Syria, he sees that this particular land was conquered by Selim the Ferocious, the Selim the First, in 1516. And until when Syria remained in Turkish hands, of course, until the end of First World War in 1918, which means for 402 years, the Turks ruled in Syria. And therefore, in Erdogan's perspective, Turkish existence in Syria is not something artificial. It's not like the Russian presence in Syria. The Russians looked at Syria as their satellite state, as a strategic manner. But the Turks when they are looking at Syria, they are seeing Syria as their, you know, as their part, as their, homeland. And you can also understand this from Mr. Erdogan's latest statements that he delivered during last December. He said you cannot limit Turkey within its own boundaries. Turkey is greater than Turkey, he said. Okay, so in addition to that, he said if the First World War would ended in a different direction, then all of these Syrian provinces of today, Idlib, Haleb, and of course Haleb is Aleppo. Apologies. I keep saying it in Arabic because it's the same in Hebrew. Apologies for that. Idlib, Aleppo, and Damascus. These provinces, this today's Syrian provinces, could be considered as Turkey's current provinces, he said. Okay, so it's not only that. We also seeing that the Turkish infrastructure and transportation minister Abdülkadir Uraloğlu made very important statements regarding Syria. Thanks to his interview with the press, I came to the conclusion that the Turks will uh, deepen their will deepen their activities inside Syria. He's talking about laying and providing the GSM mobile telephone infrastructure. He's talking about repairing the Damascus and Aleppo airports and providing their sophisticated radars that can also be used for military purposes. He's talking about the paving the way, paving new highways inside Syria that would satisfy the needs of the Turkish Ministry of Defense, meaning that they are not going to pave these highways for the welfare of the Turkish citizens, but for the welfare of Syrian citizens, but rather these highways would be paved to satisfy the militaristic demands of the Turkish Ministry of Defense, which is very crucial that you can understand that they are calculating their moves. If this is a game of chess, if this is a chess game, so they are calculating their future moves just today. And they are, of course, fixing bridges. And if it's not enough for you, they are also intending to revive the Hijaz Railway, which means that Istanbul will be connected to Damascus via railway. Okay, so in the first step, most probably the city of Aleppo would be connected to city of Gaziantep in southeast Turkey, and later I assume from Aleppo to Hama, Homs, and Damascus, this railway will come and will continue just like in the days of the Ottoman Empire. So, what is Neo Ottomanism? If this is not Neo Ottomanism, so just tell me what is Neo Ottomanism. And of course, this is not only limited within the land. Uh, in the same interview, the same minister also said that Turkey is intending to sign a maritime delimitation agreement with Syria. And when we are looking at the map, you're gonna see that Republic of Cyprus is considered as the neighbor of Syria in the sea. And this particular maritime delimitation agreement will most likely will be signed at the expense of the Cypriot exclusive economic zone and of course territorial waters. As we all know that Turkey is not a signatory in the United Nations Convention Law of the Seas, the famous UNCLOS. And of course, in this regard, Turkey does not recognize any island's right to declare continental shelf and territorial waters an exclusive economic zone, and therefore it may also push Syria to adopt its own way of thinking, way of doing things. And as a result, Turkey and Syria may redraw the boundaries of Eastern Mediterranean at the expense of Republic of Cyprus. You may most likely to see more and more Turkish presence in the of course the Turkish Navy's presence in the Eastern Mediterranean on the Syrian territorial waters. They will most likely to conduct here seismic research to find hydrocarbon bounties of the middle of the Eastern Mediterranean. So, of course, this is not, we are not going to stop. We are not going to, this is not the end of the story. Here, most probably, according to the Turkish and the Arabic press, the Turks are also eager to form military bases in Syria. Of course, this would be for their navy, and at the same time, it will be for their own land forces. And of course, in this regard, we can say that this can create an unwanted incident with the state of Israel. As we all know, since the last decade, since this eruption of this civil war inside Syria, Israel from time to time is conducting surgical military operations to eliminate its own enemies within the Syrian territory. Of course, in Israel's eyes, I think we are blessed that Iran is no longer here. But we can also not ignore the fact that this new so-called Syrian government, which is formed by these jihadists, are not what you call Zionists, right? They are not the friends of Israel. And as a result, even if today Turkey is their new patron, and on paper, Turkey and Israel are not hostile states, which is very good and important thing for the state of Israel. Uh, we cannot ignore the existence of future threats against our national security. The 7th of October taught us a very unforgettable lesson that we cannot pretend that the threat is not going to touch us. We thought that maybe in a very arrogant manner that Hamas will not cause us any trouble or they can be contained easily. They showed us that they could not. We failed. We failed, and we are still, unfortunately, paying the price. And as a result, the Israeli national security doctrine is redesigned accordingly. And as a result, in Syria, we have a new challenge. The challenge is to continue to eliminate all of the threats in Syria that are arising on the Syrian territory against the state of Israel. But here, the most important challenge would be the Turkish existence, because maybe you are not intending to take any actions against the Turks, but since they are there, maybe in an unwanted incident, God forbid, if something will happen to a Turkish soldier or two, I don't want to really imagine what would happen to the very fragile Israeli-Turkish relations. Israel does not need a new enemy. Therefore, it is our priority to basically to not to turn Turkey into a hostile state, to do everything possible to persuade Turkey that this is not Israel's interest, but at the same time, Turkey should also internalize the very fact that Israel is not going to sit and do nothing if it will feel threatened. And therefore, I know that it's a very crucial and not easy task, but I believe it is something doable that Israel should stand on its principles. I think we should open new channels with the Turkish Foreign Ministry or the Turkish intelligence, etc. This is very crucial for the national security of the state of Israel, but also at the same time, in my opinion, it's also very important for the future of the entire region because these two states are very strong states, Israel and Turkey. And we never fought against Turkey. We never declared any hostilities against Turkey. Therefore, this is very crucial for us not to turn this country into a hostile state. Long story short, when we are looking at this great picture, we see that today Erdogan is crowned in Turkey as the new conqueror of Syria uh, in a very pure neo-Ottoman manner, as we all uh, already explicated here. The potential Turkish penetrations in Syria, we can say that Syria has turned into a province of Turkey in an unofficial manner. In few days, we're gonna see the new so-called Syrian foreign minister will going to pay his first international visit where? To Turkey. I don't know if it can be considered as international or maybe some domestic flight, but yes, let us take it as a international flight. Okay, so everyone would be happy. Okay, so most probably the Turkish foreign minister will greet him, of course, next to the new Syrian flag. As you all saw the pictures, I assume from the visit of the Turkish foreign minister in Damascus, and also the visit of the Turkish director of intelligence, again in Damascus. In both of the visits, we saw Turkish flags, Syrian flags. Of course, in the visit of Mr. Fidan, of the foreign minister, we also saw Giuliani with a tie and a jacket, pure European, right? So, long story short, we are seeing that the Turks nowadays are trying to market Mr. Giuliani to the West as a decent, moderate, politician that we can do business with him. The name of the game here is business. Of course, when you're looking at this whole destruction in Syria, of course, this country should be rebuilt. And of course, the Europeans, especially the Germans, are fantasizing about sending back to these Syrian refugees back to Syria. Frankly, if they already got a citizenship or a work permit and permit for staying there and working there, I really don't think that they would eager go back to Syria. But of course, this is the right of the European decision makers to think otherwise, and they would most likely going to invest in this rebuilding process. And in this regard, we should underline that the most important actors here would be the subcontractors of Mr. Erdogan. There are five companies in Turkey that they are eating this whole slices of this different pies that Erdogan is providing them in each time, and in return they are providing Mr. Erdogan all different kinds of uh, profitable or not profitable pharaonic projects that we are seeing in Turkey in the Turkey's infrastructure. So we most likely gonna see here a new investment from the European countries into Turkey's construction sector so that they would going to build Syria again, and most likely another money would come from Qatar, right? So we're gonna see here um, the reconstruction, and of course, lots of money would be poured in the Turkish economy. And of course, you can also understand where our direction is going. That the shares of the Turkish construction firms in the Turkish stock exchange is only rising and rising and rising. So here I would like to conclude my short lecture about the Turkish foreign policy. I assume that Turkey is becoming it was influential, but I think it is now becoming more and more influential. And as a tendency, whoever controls Syria is also seeking to control Lebanon, Most probably in the near future, we may see some Turkish attempts also to take control of Lebanon. The most important, the blueprints um, of this policy could be seen in Lebanese Prime Minister Mikati's latest visit in Ankara. He said, first of all, we trust in Allah, and later, after Allah, we trust in our very good friends, especially Turkey and Mr. Erdogan, he said. And only few days after that particular visit, we also saw the Druze leader of Lebanon, Mr. Can Bolat, visited Ankara, and later he delivered a statement that Turkey can be tagged as the only state that can stop Israel in the region. So when we are looking at all of these, particles of this puzzle, and we are uniting it, we are seeing that Turkey has the appetite and is ready to eat Syria, Lebanon, and I think they would therefore expel the Iranians. And if we are talking about neo-Ottomanism, I also would like to provide you another angle about this, and I will conclude here. Again, we're gonna speak about Ottoman history. The year is 1514 this time, only 2 years before the conquest of Syria. A very important war took place in eastern Turkey of today called Chaldiran. In this particular war, the Sunni Ottomans defeated the Shiite Iranian Safavid Empire. And because of this victory, the Shiites and the Iranians could not penetrate into Anatolia, and they also could not penetrate into today's Syria, Iraq, etc. So, in history, if we are talking about a Sunni dominated Middle East, it is because of this Turkish victory in the Battle of Chaldiran. And again, it was the Selim I. So you should not be surprised that Erdogan, who dedicated his latest bridge in Istanbul in the name of Selim I, it was a clear message once again that he doesn't want to see any Iranian Shiite slash Alevite existence inside Syria, because in his point of view, the existence of the Alawites as the controlling power and the Shiites, the Iranian Shiites in Syria, is something artificial, artificial in terms of history. And therefore, when he's seeing Mr. Julani and his Sunni domination over the Alawites and the expulsion of the Iranians in Syria, so he feels content, and he in his way of thinking, he thinks that this is the way that Middle East should be seen. And here I would like to conclude my words. I would like to thank you very much once again for having me here on this distinguished platform. Thank you.